Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Reeby, Principal of Vanderveer Elementary School.
And I'm Dr. Tian, Superintendent of Schools.
We are so excited to welcome everyone to our Vanderveer Evening Learning Academy.
You are all in for weeks and weeks of enjoyment.
You will be learning alongside your very own Vanderveer teachers.
Also, we have teachers and administrators from across the district that will be bringing you fun learning experiences.
You will become scientists, engineers, mathematicians, writers, world explorers, and learn to communicate in different languages as you explore concepts in math, reading, writing, science, social studies, world language, and so many more.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we encourage you to visit often and view other lessons in our learning library as we add to the videos each week. Enjoy. Good evening. My name is Dr. Tian, and I am the Superintendent of Schools. But tonight, I will be teaching you about the lungs and the respiratory system. Before being a superintendent, I've been a principal, I've been a teacher, and I've been many other things, which I'm going to go over in a second. All of them go to show you that you can be anything that you want to be. And if your interests change, you can change what you want to do as well. So one of the other jobs that I did for many years was manage an amusement park. So every day of games and rides and food, it was a lot of fun. I also owned an ice cream business, and that was a lot of fun and a lot of ice cream eating. And before both of those careers, I was a respiratory therapist. Now, the job of a respiratory therapist is to work in a hospital and take care of people that have all different types of breathing problems. So my career as a respiratory therapist brings us to our lesson of today, where we're going to talk about the lungs and the respiratory system. The human body is actually made up of many different systems. To name a few, we have the cardiovascular system, which is the heart. We have the central nervous system, which is the brain. We also have the digestive system, which is the stomach and the intestines. We have the immune system, which fights off infection. And we have the muscle and the skeletal system, all the bones and the muscles in your body. But like I said, the one that we're going to focus on today is the respiratory system, which we're going to really focus on the lungs. So the objective of today's lesson is going to be to try to understand the parts of the respiratory system and the lungs. And we want to learn what makes up the lungs, what are all the different parts that make it up, and how do each of them work? What is their each part's job? Okay, everyone, we're going to start to take a tour of our respiratory system. So hold on, and here we go. Okay, the respiratory system, it's going to start with the nose, that thing in the center of your face. And this is what we use to breathe in and out of. Whoa, you don't want to do this because that will block your nose and that will stop you from being able to breathe and have air enter the respiratory system. So don't do that. Moving on from the nose, we know that air can also go in and out of the mouth. Is that your mouth? Wait a minute. Is that your mouth? That's more like it. So your mouth is another area where air can enter in and out of your body, in and out of your respiratory system. So air can come in through your nose or through your mouth and can also go out of your nose and also out of your mouth. Now we're going to continue our journey through the rest of the respiratory system. So this is a picture of what some of the major parts of the respiratory system look like. Many of these parts are inside your actual lungs. What does this picture look like to you? I heard some people say that it looked like a broom. I heard other people say it was like a twig that you find on the ground. I personally was thinking, and I heard the same thing too from a lot of you, that it looks like a tree. And so I took this picture and I turned it upside down. And sure enough, to me, that looks like a tree. It looks like the trunk, the branches coming off of that, with smaller branches coming off of that. And then at the end, there's some leaves or flowers. Okay, let's continue our journey. Okay, the first stop on our journey as we go through the respiratory system in the lungs, after we go through the nose or the mouth, the first thing that we're going to encounter is going to be called the vocal cords. And that's the white object that you see in the center of that picture. What do you think is the job of the vocal cords? You are absolutely correct. Our vocal cords are there so that we can speak, sing, or just make noises, anything that we want to. I have a rubber band here, and I'm going to show you what it does. A rubber band can expand, but it also can contract. Expand, contract. I also have a balloon. I want you to listen to this for a second. As I let out air, I want you to listen to the sound that it makes. So, why or how do you think that those different sounds were able to be made from the balloon? Our vocal cords work the exact same way as what we demonstrated with the balloon. When you loosen them up, your voice gets really deep, and that means your vocal cords are loose. But when you talk like this, that means your vocal cords are tight. You've stretched them out, and they're squeaky. As we continue on our journey, once we get past our vocal cords, the first stop along the way is the trachea. It's this long tube or pipe that air travels down as you breathe in, or air travels out as you breathe out. Your trachea is right here, going down from right around your top of your neck down to right around here, and you can feel most of it. This is also known as your windpipe. You'll know you have your trachea when you feel it because it feels like it's ribbed. And if you were to go up and down, it makes your voice sound funny. So that's your trachea. The purpose of the trachea is to let air in and out of your body, in into your lungs, and then out of your lungs, out of your body. When you're breathing in, that's actually oxygen that you're breathing in. Your body needs oxygen. When you're breathing out, that's actually carbon dioxide coming out. That's your body's waste. So that's the purpose of the trachea. It is a windpipe that allows air in and out of the body. As you travel down the trachea to the very end, when you hit the end, it splits. It splits to the right and it splits to the left. These two tubes, smaller tubes that go to the right and the smaller tube that goes to the left, these are called bronchi. They have the same purpose as the trachea, which is to allow air to go in and out of the lungs. The bronchi, the right and left, are the first parts of the respiratory system that actually enter the lungs. So the reason why there are two bronchi is because you have one that goes to your right lung and the other that goes to your left lung. Off the bronchi, you have smaller and smaller tubes that come off. Each one of these smaller tubes is called a bronchiole. At the end of each of these bronchial tubes, these teeny tiny little tubes are a sac of a whole bunch of little teeny tiny sacs or balloon-like little structures, and these are called alveoli. Surrounding the alveoli are veins and arteries. The reason why the veins and arteries surround the alveoli is because in the alveoli, when you take a breath in, the oxygen goes into your blood. And when you breathe out, carbon dioxide comes out of your blood and into the alveoli and then out of your body. Veins and arteries are all over your body. They're everywhere. If you want to find where your arteries are, you can actually feel one right at your wrist. If you take your two fingers, your pointer and your middle finger, and you place it on the thumb side of your wrist, you'll feel a pounding. That is an artery. You can't actually see it because it's too deep, but you can feel it. The veins, you can also see usually right at your wrist. You'll see purple lines or dark colored lines running through. Some people can see it on the back of their hands. And if you look at the inside of your elbow, you'll see some purple lines there as well, or on the inside of your muscle. So the veins and arteries are everywhere. Arteries generally deeper, you can't see them. Veins are closer to the surface of the skin, those you can see. These are no different than the ones that are around the alveoli. Together, all of these parts come together into one system called the respiratory system. The two lungs hold all or most of these parts, and they allow the oxygen to come into the body, into the blood, and allow carbon dioxide to leave the body. So we have all these different parts that make up our respiratory system, all these different pieces that are inside of our lungs. But the part I don't get is, how do the lungs fill up with air and push air out? What is causing it to happen? You're right. You knew that there should be some kind of a muscle that must be doing all this work, because we know the muscles in our body do all the work. That muscle in the respiratory system is called the diaphragm. And that muscle sits right below the two lungs. That diaphragm muscle, it contracts or gets really tight sometimes, and then other times it just relaxes. If we were able to take a look inside of the body and see the lungs in action, this is what it would look like. All right, you guys are doing a great job. You've learned so much so far. You know all about the respiratory system. You understand all the fancy names for each one of the parts. You know how it all works. You know that air comes in through either the nose or the mouth, and it goes down through the trachea being that windpipe. All of that acts as a means for everything to go in and out. Once it gets down to the trachea at the bottom and it splits into the bronchi, the right and left, we know that's where the air goes into the lungs, the right lung and the left lung. We also know that off of the bronchi are bronchioles, which are either more smaller little tubes that allow the pathway for the air to travel. And at the end of each one of those bronchioles are alveoli, which are little air sacs or little balloons. And we know the whole purpose behind this is so that air, oxygen, can be breathed in. And then we know that we want to get rid of our waste, which is carbon dioxide, and we breathe that out. And that's the job of our whole respiratory system. So today, we're actually going to build our own model. So in order to do this, you'll need a couple of simple supplies. I found 2 balloons. I figured pink balloons, nice healthy lungs. You're going to need some kind of plastic baggie. So I'm using from the food store, I'm using one of those bags. Some tape. I have some duct tape, or you can use like regular clear tape. I have a 2-liter bottle, or you can use a 3-liter bottle, or if you want smaller lungs, you can use like a 1-liter bottle or even a 16-ounce bottle, whatever. You're going to use a bottle, and you're going to have a responsible adult cut the bottom off. So you'll end up with just this part. This is what you're looking for. So I'm going to discard this one. And you're going to need 2 straws. So I stole these straws from my daughter, and these are the harder ones, but you can use the flexible ones, you can use bamboo ones, you can use whatever you want. So 2 straws. And then I'm also going to have like a tissue or a napkin, paper napkin, that I'm going to use as well. So we're going to start off with building our lungs. The easiest way to do that is to take 1 balloon and 1 straw and insert the straw into the balloon, just a little bit, not much. And then you're going to tape the top of that onto the balloon. So I'm going to do that now. And I'm just going to use a little bit of my duct tape, since duct tape you can use on anything. And I'm going to wrap that around nice and tight. I have 1 lung. Pretty good. Now I hear a little bit of a leak, so I'm going to tighten that up. Perfect. And I'm going to do the same thing with my second lung. Because remember, we have a right lung and a left lung. I'm going to get a little tape for that. And I'm going to tape that nice and tight around. And test it out. Not leaking. That's great. So now I have 2 healthy lungs. Now, the purpose of the pipes are, or the straws, these are our windpipes. This is our trachea, and if I had the flexible straws, I could have 1 go to the right and 1 go to the left to each lung, but I couldn't find those, so I'm just using these straight ones, but you get the idea. So these are my lungs, and this is what's known as my thoracic cavity. Fancy word for, it's basically my ribs and my muscles. So it's my chest, all of that. So if you feel your ribs, they're all there. It's all the muscles that are in there. That's going to be that. The mouth of the opening is basically our neck. So the neck of the bottle is our neck. So I'm going to insert my lungs and trachea into my thoracic cavity. And I'm going to use a little bit of paper towel. But like I said, you can use whatever you want. Tissues. And I'm just going to kind of stuff it in there. And the reason why I'm doing that is 2 reasons. 1, I want to make it so it doesn't slide. And 2, I want to try to make it as airtight as possible. Because if you think about your own body doesn't have holes going through it into the inside, into your chest. Otherwise, all sorts of things would be leaking out. So I'm going to put my hand in the other way to kind of squish it in there and kind of compressing everything together. And just to be safe, I'm going to use some tape and tape up the top. So once again, nothing can escape out, or as little as possible. Now, even though I'm using 2 straws, you have to think of it as 1 straw, because remember, we only have 1 trachea, so it's more like that. But as you see, I have my set of lungs. Well, I also need the muscle. And as we learned in our session prior, we need a muscle which is called the diaphragm. So that will be my plastic baggie. So I'm going to tape my plastic baggie to the bottom of the container, but I'm going to push it in just a little bit because we know the diaphragm sits right below the lungs. So I'm going to have it just in a little bit, and I'm going to tape that into place. And once again, I'm going to use my duct tape. I love duct tape. Whoops. Round and round. Tighten that up. One more piece. Okay, so that's all pretty tight. And I'm just going to do one more thing. I'm going to get a piece of my tape and I'm going to kind of fold it in on itself like this so that it looks like a bird or a T. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to tape this to the bottom of this plastic bag. So I'm going to pull the bag out a little bit and I'm going to put this on. The reason why I'm doing that is because that will act as like a handle for me. So now I have my nice set of lungs, I have my diaphragm, I have my thoracic cavity, my trachea, and when I push in and then pull out, do you see the lungs inflating and deflating ever so slightly? Now hopefully you'll do a better job than I did, but this is how our lungs breathe. The diaphragm is pushing up and pulling down. What it's doing is changing the pressure inside the chest. That change in pressure is actually what's causing the air to rush in or to rush out. So that's your model. Have fun with it. You can try some different things with it. You can try adding some water in and seeing if that causes any kind of problems with the lungs being able to inflate and deflate. That'll give you an idea about some diseases that are out there. You can also think about what happens in the case of asthma, where somebody's airways start to get inflamed or they start to swell. And when that happens, the airway becomes more narrow. And that's why there's that wheezing sound or that squeaking sound. So that will give you an idea too. Does that make it easier or harder to breathe? And so you can think about your lungs in that way as well. So this is our model. I want you to play with it and see what you think. Welcome back for our final thoughts. Today we learned a lot, we did a lot, we created a nice model. I took a little bit of time and I redid my model a little bit, just so I made the lungs a little higher so that you could see it a little better. And so you can see how the lungs are actually working a little better. You can see them opening and closing or expanding and contracting. So, if at first you don't succeed, feel free to play around with it and seal up. Make sure you get a nice tight seal on your diaphragm and your top part in the mouth of the bottle so that you don't have any air escaping. I just want to leave you with I think, an interesting fact. When a newborn baby is born, the very first breath that baby takes is the result of this diaphragm working very hard. And it's, for the first time, has to cause all those alveoli to pop open for the very first time. So the first time a baby takes a breath is actually causing all the alveoli to pop open. I'm going to leave you with two challenges. The first challenge is try to swallow and breathe at the same time. That's challenge number one. Challenge number two, try to talk and breathe at the same time. Why can you do that, or why can't you? So think about that. You might have to do a little bit of investigation to find out why that can happen or why that can't happen. And feel free to let myself know or Ms. Forever know. I'm going to leave you our email addresses at the end, and feel free to reach out and let me know any of your thoughts. So it was great working with you guys tonight. Have a great night and see you soon.